This is a video about the Hotel Carbon Measurement Initiative. It's intended to support individual hotels and hotel companies to use HCMI by informing you about what it is, how it can help you, and how you can use the tool. Let's start with what HCMI is and why it was created. Climate change is a global problem, and we're already seeing it affect the hospitality sector, with extreme weather increasing the cost of operations and reducing the number of tourists visiting certain destinations. However, hospitality is also a contributor to the problem, as typical procurement, consumption and disposal practices are negatively impacting our systems and environment. This happens through pollution, habitat destruction and increased greenhouse gas emissions. In fact, the industry creates about 1% of total global carbon emissions, so it's imperative that we take action. For a hotel to be able to effectively manage and reduce their environmental impacts, it's important for them to understand their current level of greenhouse gas emissions. Sustainability is also becoming increasingly more important for the public, corporate clients and investors. 81% of travellers believe sustainable travel is important, with 71% of guests saying that they want to travel more sustainably. Sustainability is a priority for 89% of the global business travel industry, and 55% are measuring the environmental impact of their company's business travel. This means that they're increasingly requesting impact data, including carbon emissions, from companies that they do business with. With this in mind, the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance, World Travel and Tourism Council and KPMG came together in 2012 with a group of 23 leading global hospitality companies to create the Hotel Carbon Measurement Initiative, or HCMI. Since then, even more companies have been involved, and it's been updated a couple of times, most recently in 2022. It was developed to calculate and communicate the carbon footprint of hotel stays and meetings in a consistent and transparent way. HCMI aligns with the Greenhouse Gas Protocol and follows the principles of ISO 14064. It includes all greenhouse gas emissions resulting from activities within their premises, known as Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions, and, if applicable, includes outsourced laundry operations, which fall under Scope 3. It enables hotels to calculate their total carbon footprint, the footprint per occupied room, the footprint per area of meeting space, and the renewable energy and electricity as a portion of total consumption. There's a methodology which can be incorporated into reporting platforms and a standalone tool which can be used by those hotels who don't have an environmental reporting system. HCMI can be used by hotels all around the world, whether they're part of a chain or independent, have hundreds of guest rooms or just a handful, and regardless of the amenities they offer. It's now used by tens of thousands of hotels, including those of Marriott, Radisson, Hyatt and Scandic. Its use is also supported by various industry-leading organisations, including the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, who establish and manage global standards for sustainable travel and tourism, the American Hotel and Lodging Association, which is the largest hotel association in the United States, and the Global Business Travel Association, who are the voice of the global business travel industry. But how can it help you? HCMI can help you to benchmark your hotel's performance by comparing the metrics against the Cornell Hotel Sustainability Benchmark Index, or CHSB. This is the industry's largest annual benchmarking of energy, carbon and water. You can measure your progress year over year and communicate your achievements to guests and your team to engage them in your carbon reduction initiatives. You can also use it to provide transparent and comparable data to your stakeholders, such as corporate customers and investors. Next, we'll review how you can use the HCMI tool. There's particular data that you need to use HCMI. In HCMI, we calculate the total energy use and refrigerants used on site, plus energy used by any outsourced laundry, if it's applicable. We also take away any energy consumed in private space, and then this is converted into tons of carbon emissions using the most relevant emissions factors. There are two categories of data you'll need to gather. First is the standing data that is unlikely to change year on year. And secondly is the annual data, which you'll need to gather every year. Standing data includes the total area of guest rooms and corridors, total area of meeting space, and total area of private space where that's applicable. Annual data consists of the number of occupied rooms, consumption figures for all Scope 1 and 2 fuels, refrigerants used, emissions factors, and data relating to any outsourced laundry. HCMI calculations should use 12 months of data, but if you don't have the full 12 months, there are estimation techniques listed in the FAQ and methodology which can be used. Once you have the data and information that you need, you can open up the HCMI Excel tool. On the first tab, you will find an overview of the methodology and the tool. On the second is a how-to guide. On the third tab are some definitions of language used throughout the tool. The first tab that you will need to input information into is the hotel details and result. At the top, you can see a key which shows the colours of the cells throughout the tool. Anything that's yellow should be manually completed by you. Anything that's blue has a drop-down you can select from. If it's light grey, it's automatically calculated, and if it's dark grey, it's not applicable. Anything with an asterisk on it has a definition in the Definitions tab. So firstly, you'll need to input the contact details and the hotel details. Remembering anything in blue has a drop-down. As well as the address and information such as that, you'll need to know the total area of guest rooms and corridors, the total area of meeting space, and information about the total number of guest rooms that you have. Throughout the tool, you will find that sometimes pop-ups come up with a little bit more information about the type of information that you need. Next, you'll need to complete the supplementary questions. These are things like, is your laundry outsourced? And do you have any private space which is not accessible by guests? As you complete these, you will find that it changes the results in this column here. That will then tell you which tabs you need to complete as you go through the tool. At the bottom is the results section, which we will come back to. So once you've completed the general information about your hotel and answered the supplementary questions, you'll need to move on to the energy consumption. Within this tab, you will find automatically populated here are 3 energy types. You'll need to select the unit for each one and input the total consumption. You'll also need to decide whether you're using default emissions factors that are in there for every country, or whether you're going to be inputting your own manual emissions factors, which you'll then need to input in this column P. For this example, we're using default emissions factors. If you have private space and you indicated on the first tab that you're able to provide actual data, you'll be able to input it in column I. If not, then once you've input everything, then it will be estimated based on the total consumption that you have and the portion of the hotel space that is private. Otherwise, if you don't have private space, this will all be completely greyed out. Once you've done that for the automatically populated fuels, you can also select your own energy types and add other ones into the mix there, and follow the same process of adding the unit, the total consumption, and the emissions factors. If you scroll over to the far right hand side, you'll be able to see that the emissions factors are there and the total emissions are also calculated there. So now we'll scroll down. If you have any market-based renewable electricity purchases, then you're able to add them in here. So you can either select yes, or if you don't, select no, and it will be greyed out. If you would like to input some, then you will need to select the type or add a description of the type of purchase that it is, the total amount that you have, and then you're also able to add some comments in this box. This could be information about where you purchased it from or anything else that you would like to track. Once you've got the main energy resources data in this tool, you can then move on to the outsourced laundry. Now this will be applicable if you have outsourced laundry. If you don't need to worry about this tab at all. So the first thing to do if you do have outsourced laundry is to indicate whether you can get the share of energy consumption from your laundry contractor for the reporting year. If you can, then you would need to complete the information in this section here, A1. You can use the drop downs to add different types of energy sources. You can add the total consumption and then use the drop downs to select the units. This will then create a calculation at the bottom as well. If you aren't able to provide the actual consumption, then an estimation will be carried out. For this, you will need to indicate whether you know your laundry tonnage or not. If you do know your laundry tonnage, then you can input it in this yellow cell. And then based on that, a calculation will occur at the bottom to tell you how much we think that has been consumed. If you aren't able to do this, then select no in that cell, and there will be an estimation calculated here in A2 based on the number of occupied rooms for that period. For this example, we're saying that we do know the laundry tonnage. Next, you can move on to the refrigerants. So if you do need to input refrigerants, you'll be asked whether they are a particular type. If they are one of the types that are listed out on that cell, then you can go down and input the information about how much was actually used. So there are those ones there, and then there are also some additional refrigerants listed out below. This will then calculate a total at the bottom. If you did have refrigerants that you need to report, but they weren't those ones that are listed out in that cell that you can see here, then you would select no in the box, and it will tell you that a total carbon uplift of 1% will be added onto your total consumption. So that's all the information in terms of the data that you need to input. You can then go back to the hotel details and results and scroll down, and you will see a few different metrics and figures that can be useful for you. So the first is the total carbon emissions for the reporting period. Then you have the total guest room carbon footprint and the total meetings carbon footprint. And then we get into the metrics. These are carbon footprint per occupied room on a daily basis, carbon footprint per area of meeting space on an hourly basis, and total carbon footprint per metre squared on an annual basis. Then there's some information about renewable energy and electricity used in your property. So there's the total renewable energy, the total renewable electricity used by the hotel as a percentage of total use, and total renewable and electricity used by the hotel as a total of percentage use. Finally, there's greenhouse gas scopes. You can see totals there for those. So scope 1 being fuels burnt on site, scope 2 being purchased electricity and purchased heating and cooling, and for scope 3 we will show you the outsourced laundry. But please note that scope 3 includes many other sources than just the outsourced laundry, but outsourced laundry is the only one that we show within HCMI at the moment. The final tab to show you is tab C, the client report. You can use this if you have a client who wants to know the impact of a particular meeting or stay in your property. You'd input information about your hotel and the hotel group if that's relevant. Then you can input information about the client and the reporting period. This would include the total number of room nights that they had, the total area of meeting space that they occupied, and the length of time that they occupied it for. Then at the bottom, it calculates the carbon footprint for that particular set of meetings or room nights. What can you do next? Calculate your carbon emissions by downloading and using HCMI to track energy use and carbon emissions of your hotel properties. There is an FAQ introduction document on the HCMI page with more information should you need it. Benchmark your properties and participate in the annual Cornell Hotel Sustainability Benchmark. You should also develop a strategy. You can use our Global Hotel Decarbonisation Report and Net Zero methodology to help develop a CO2 emissions reduction strategy and set science-based targets. You can also use our Pathway to Net Positive Hospitality to create a holistic environmental strategy. And finally, you can engage with your stakeholders. Get your sales teams to engage your clients using some of the HCMI resources for customers of the industry. These explain the benefits to clients of them requesting HCMI data and furthering alignment of carbon reporting across the industry. You can also use our business case on sustainable hotels to engage your owners and investors and show them that it makes good sense to invest in your property's sustainability. Thank you for watching this webinar. As a reminder, you can find HCMI and related resources on our website. If you have any questions or feedback, please feel free to contact us using the email address displayed. Thank you.